live to Nigel Topping. He's a high-level climate champion for the COP process. Now, that role is a liaison between governments and everyone else, like businesses, investors, city mayors and climate groups. He was appointed for the Glasgow conference and is in Sharm el-Sheikh. Good morning and welcome to BH, Nigel.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
So let's do it as good cop, bad cop. Good cop first. This deal on loss and damage has been 30 years in the making.
It's a huge breakthrough, and even 2 years ago, people would have thought this was impossible. And if you follow the social media accounts of people like Salim Hook from Bangladesh, who's been one of the real champions for this, there's a kind of elation tempered with the realization that agreement politically to establish the fund is not the same as putting money in it. So that's going to be the next step, working on the detail.
Right, because I'm just looking at Pakistan, which is responsible for 0.8% of global greenhouse emissions, is constantly hit by climate catastrophe. The latest floods estimated at nearly 30 billion. The Prime Minister says this is a pivotal step, but you're saying there's no money yet.
Well, there's no money negotiated. There has been about 340 million pledged. And importantly, one of the features of this COP has been an acknowledgement that not everything can be negotiated. So there's references to innovative sources of funds, other sources of funds beyond what can be negotiated. So there's now interesting talk about ideas like levying on every barrel of oil pumped or on every container shipped. So I expect this to be a more innovative conversation about possible sources of those funds from now on.
And with apologies to you listening if you feel this is perhaps trivial, but given that you were there, people say this has been a chaotic process, and even that the conference centre was being dismantled with the water taken away as the deal was signed. Can you give me a little flavour of if that's true? Chaotic, workers dismantling the conference centre in the middle of the night?
Well, you know, when you get 44,000 people together from all walks of life and all corners of the world, it's always somewhat chaotic. And all of the pavilions that were not to do with the negotiation were being dismantled from Saturday because that programme finished on Friday. So I think that's fairly normal. COP's always overrun. This one overran by a little bit more. But normally they were overrun until Saturday. This one overran until the early hours of Sunday morning.
Okay. And back to where I started with good cop, bad cop. Let's now talk about bad cop. Alok Sharma has really summed this up for us. There's been no further steps on limiting global warming.
Well, I have to slightly take issue with Alok's summary of it. That's true in the negotiation process. But remember, the COP is not just about what's negotiated. It's about how we mobilise everybody, the whole of society, to raise up ambition and accelerate action. And there we've seen real progress. We've seen the breakthrough agenda launched in Glasgow with more countries, more businesses, more investors, accelerating progress, for example, towards the end of the combustion engine or accelerating investment green steel and green hydrogen. And we, for the first time, got an implementation agenda for the issues on adaptation, which is so important to so many vulnerable countries.
Well, I wonder if you've gone native, because the phrase keep 1.5 alive, he says 1.5 is on life support. We've been reading the text since we got to work. There's no talk about limiting fossil fuel beyond what they said in Glasgow 12 months ago, and everyone says the clock's ticking. So if you take issue with him, do you think 1.5 is alive?
It is still alive. It is on life support, but that's my whole point, is you're just reading the text. I'm reading the real economy. And there you see the IEA say that already we have enough capacity built and committed to meet the required amount of solar energy in 2030, for example. So we need to pay attention to the detail of what's happening in the real economy as well as what's happening in the text. It's a sort of call and response. And I think the response from the raised urgency in Glasgow has been very real in the real economy.
Fine. Thank you so much for joining us. Did you get any sleep?
A little, but I'm going to get a lot more now.
Everyone who listens to this programme says the same thing. Thank you very much indeed. Yeah. Thanks, Nigel. So there we are. He is a high-level climate champion appointed last year. We're trying to break it down to good cop, bad cop. He's more optimistic than Alok Sharma, and we gave you a little bit of that. It's all happened in the middle of the night.